And Congressman David Obey is chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, and he is joining us right now to talk through all of this with us. Congressman, welcome to you.
Thank you.
You say, as we just heard, that we should have a war surtax to pay for any troop increase in Afghanistan. Talk us through exactly what you're proposing.
Well, look, we've been told for the last year that we have to pay for every dime that the new health care reform bill will cost. And that's estimated to be about $900 billion over 10 years. At the same time, we're being told by people who support General McChrystal's approach to expanding the war in Afghanistan that we need to be prepared to hunker down and accept what could be a decade-long commitment in Afghanistan. If we do what has been in the papers about the size of that package, that also is about $900 billion, except that's not being paid for. So what we're suggesting is that if we're going to pay for health care, we also ought to pay for whatever we're doing in Afghanistan if we decide to go ahead. And what we're suggesting is a war surtax, a graduated tax, so that we don't devour with that war cost every other priority that we have in the economy. That surtax would start at 1% for anybody with taxable income. It would rise to 2% if you have the income of, say, a member of Congress. And then once you hit $250,000, $300,000, it would rise some more until the full cost of the war would be covered, so we don't pass the cost of that war on to our kids.
So Robert Gibbs, who's the White House press secretary, was asked about your plan today, and he said, look, it's too early to talk about paying for a decision that's yet to be made. And what's your response to that?
I think he's right in that you won't know how much it will cost until you know what's being recommended. Look, the president has a miserable set of choices. He didn't start this war. He didn't screw up our ability to win it in the first place like the previous administration did. And now we're stuck with the reality that being mired in Afghanistan, in my judgment, we don't have a viable partner on the ground in an Afghan government that is worth anything in the fight. No matter how good a strategy is, if you don't have the tools to implement it on the ground, the strategy isn't worth very much. And right now, it's very hard to convince me that we have a reliable partner on the ground in either the Pakistani government or the Afghan government.
But let me ask you about your motives, because 2 years ago you proposed a similar tax on the war in Iraq, and it was a non-starter then. I mean, very clearly people said this is going nowhere. It's not worth even having a discussion about. What makes you think your colleagues are going to support it now in this form?
2 years, I don't know if they will, but 2 years ago the economy had not yet collapsed. 2 years ago we didn't have a runaway deficit, which we have now thanks to the collapse of that economy. And 2 years ago we weren't being asked to expand another effort in Afghanistan that we're told might last 10 years. I do not believe this country will support and involvement in Afghanistan for the next 10 years at the level being discussed about. But if they do, we at least ought to pay for it so we don't drive the cost into our kids.
So it is a serious proposal in your view. You're not just trying to send the president a message that Democrats are not just going to roll over on the issue of Afghanistan.
Anybody who knows me knows I'm a serious person. And I have great sympathy for the president. There is no decision he can make that's going to be the right one. He will be hammered no matter what happens. Well, that's unfair, but that's what will happen.
Congressman,
But I do want to do everything I can to make certain that the White House and everybody in Congress understands that there are huge financial costs to this war. We saw the progressive movement in this country back in before the 20s wiped out by World War I. We saw Harry Truman's fair deal wiped out by Korea. We saw Lyndon Johnson's Great Society wiped out by Vietnam. I don't want to see the restructuring and reforming of our own economy wiped out because we get stuck in a 10-year war that isn't paid for.
Congressman Obey, we appreciate your time tonight and you coming on to express your views. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.